Okay, well, I think we can probably get started. We have some people still joining, but I will kick things off. So thank you all for joining us for our second 40 Minutes with Fran event of the year. We've got two more, one in January and one in April. But we're so excited to have you guys here. And I want to introduce our guest is Amanda Casgar, my fellow classmate, who also happens to be one of my best friends. So she is class of 1996. For those I have not met, my name is Missy Iredell Gebhardt, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement. And as I said, I'm class of 96. So thrilled to have everyone here. And hopefully you saw that Amanda was spotlighted in our November alumni newsletter. And we got such great response from that we thought it'd be great to have her back and have a conversation with Fran and share a little bit about her path since leaving HB, what she's done with her career. She's had quite an exciting career over the years, working for some really big companies, and she's been a leader in all of those roles and has now launched out to start her own business, and she's now a mother of an adorable little girl. And so this is kind of our time just to share what she's learned in her career and how she's taken the lessons from HB and learning for life into her adulthood. And so I welcome everybody to use the chat to ask any questions or comments, and I will turn it over to Head of School, Dr. Fran Bissell.
Thanks, Misty. And so fun that everybody could join today. Thank you. You know, it's a big day at HB for Alumni Office because hot off the press is your magazine. It's coming your way. Notice the heart in the clouds. It's about a heart. Anyway, they did such a great job. So yay for alums. And Amanda, I'm just so thrilled to meet you via Zoom and to have a great conversation. This fall, I've actually been to 6 different cities, about 141 alumni conversations where we've highlighted people. And I think this kind of vision of us having a international, most powerful worldwide network of alums is coming to fruition and realization. And it's just so fun to see how HB women really champion women in all they do. And I know that's been part of your journey, Amanda, as I read it. Well, you're from the class of 1996, and you attended HB, I believe, from first grade to your senior year. Yep. I did not check your academic record, but I did maybe look in a yearbook or two. Field hockey goalie.
Oh, yeah.
There's a connection. I'm a field hockey girl as well. And over in the West Coast in Seattle with your partner, Eric, and your 2-year-old daughter, Edie. Is it Edie or Eddie?
Edie, like Edith. Yeah.
Edith. Yeah, I love the old names. My daughters are Agnes and Lucille. So Edith, we'd fit right in, right? Yeah. And you attended Northwestern, and then you kind of stayed in Chicago to work for Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then tell us a little bit about that. How was working for Oprah, talking about powerful women championing women?
That's true. You know, I always wanted to be a talk show host. And I think I got my start leading the morning meetings at HB. I was the head of the order willing service. And I don't know how that sort of directed me to leading morning meetings senior year, or if it was just something that I sort of elbowed in on because I liked to be in front of a microphone. But I had these aspirations of being a talk show host and went to Northwestern, and a gal a year older than me, Joanne Garfinkel, went to Northwestern as well. And I remember visiting her, you know, as part of our great HB building relationships in college, you know, program. I went and visited her, and I was like, oh, like, I had my eye on Northwestern because Oprah was in Chicago. And I always thought that, you know, be in proximity and maybe something would happen. And I ended up interning for Oprah my junior year summer of college. And then after I graduated, they called me to offer me a job in the media relations department. And it was thrilling and intimidating and overwhelming. And at the same time, I had been working at a snowboarding store in Chicago, like with these guys that were like very non-Northwestern and kind of cool. And I remember, and they offered me a job at the end of college too. And I was like, oh, should I work for the shred shop or should I work for Oprah? And I remember it actually being like one of those decisions, you know, in hindsight, it was not a decision point. It was probably me just being a little intimidated by having a dream sort of actualized so fully, and looking it in the face. But yeah, I started there June of, after graduating from college. And what was powerful about that as like a beginning of my career was that Oprah was really one of the first people that operated as a brand, and she had all these various platforms that she could do business in. And at that point in time in the 2000s, like the early aughts, omni-channel media was just becoming a thing, and integrated marketing was something that we didn't know about. And the advent of the internet, we didn't really know what it was going to become yet. And at the time that I was at Harpo, we launched .com, so her website, and O Magazine, and there was Harpo Films and the book club. And so there were all these different spokes of her empire and ways that we could really like deliver messaging and connect with the audience in different content platforms. And so it was really drinking from the fire hose of learning, and an amazing first opportunity, and like so overwhelming and intimidating, and yeah, like
Did you work with her on a regular basis or just her teams?
Yeah, no, her, and it was a great example of like a boss that I didn't want to be. I had this boss that was super intimidating and really kind of mean. And I just really wanted to please her because I was afraid of doing something wrong. So there's really great learning in that direction of what leadership looked like and what great leadership looked like. Because I had other bosses that were really kind and supportive and were teaching me, because I was 21, like I didn't know anything, like I knew nothing except to be a yes and to show up and to work hard, which were all great values that HB taught. And that growth mindset of learning along the way. And there's some bosses and some leaders who are teachers, and there's some that expect you to know everything. And I had the great fortune of having a teacher alongside the one who expected me to know everything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always feel life gives you chapters in moments where you learn what you don't want to be or don't want to be like, as much as what you do want to do and you do want to be like. So that's interesting about that. What would be the best piece of career advice you kind of garnered from that experience?
I think it's career advice and life advice. I mean, Oprah always said, who you are without money is who you are with money. And so who you are without success is who you are with success. Who you are when things are going poorly is who you are when things are going well. It's just the amplification of those things. And so what I really learned was who did I want to be? And I think it really set me off on this journey of growth and personal discovery, and like continuing to work on myself to be better versions, better chapters and better iterations every time. And so, yeah, I take personal growth seriously, and I, and I'm a reflective person. And I think Oprah was, collectively, like as a culture, she was one of our first and greatest teachers. She had this platform, she had experts on, and she was one of the first people who started advocating for mental well-being and belief and, like this full spectrum life by having these experts on. And I think that's only become more available. And I think the more we understand how well we feel is like who we are in the world and in our relationships, which is the most important thing.
Yeah. Not that I want to jump over Rachel Ray and Lifetime TV in New York, but I am interested when you joined Lululemon, how you got involved in that, because that has been a longer stint for you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my parents had never heard of the brand, and I think maybe even some of my friends hadn't. I mean, if that gives you any indication of like the early days with the brand. I'd been living in New York. I loved exercising. I loved going to yoga, and I knew I wanted to work on the brand side. I'd always worked on the media side in marketing, and I knew I wanted to work on the brand side because that's where the real decision making was. That was where you were able to inform what the brand could become and where it existed. But I never thought of the athletic apparel space or Lululemon or retail really at all. And I actually started working at the store over Christmas time because I needed the extra money, and stores are always hiring over Christmas time, as we know. And I started working at the store, and it was so fun and so amazing. And there was such a strong belief system in like who the brand was and what they were doing in the world that was really magnetic. It's, I think what I learned at Lululemon over the course of 12 years was the 101 on really developing a great brand. And I think it's incumbent on brands now in the world to be leaders and to lead, if we're going to solve climate change, it's going to happen through business, right? And the impact that businesses are making and how they're being responsible. And then you think about that corollary to lots of other problems that we're solving. And I think what I loved about Lululemon was that they truly believe that they can make the world a better place by helping people, find what they were most interested in and living a life that they loved and helping people figure out what that looked like. And so I stayed for 12 years because the culture was so rich and really invested in people and in growing leaders and developing leaders in the world. And, I think we often have jobs and we all have bosses, and there aren't a lot of courses on how to be a great boss. And one of my favorite jobs at Lululemon, or favorite bosses at Lululemon, this man, Ken Lee, he was a head of our Asia business, Japanese man, really smart and experienced. His first boss told him, Ken, you'll have 100 bosses in your lifetime and 2 will be good. The rest will either be idiots or jerks. And then, there's some truth to that experience. And so what I love about Lululemon is this notion of creating more great bosses in the world.
That's awesome. You mentioned earlier about, if we're going to solve climate, it's going to come from business. I know Lizzie Horvitz is on this call and she has a brand, I think Finch, yay, who's trying to do that. So if you haven't connected with that on Instagram, it's certainly a highlight of my day, along with the half calf announcements as well. But it's interesting you bring up bosses and leadership. This year at HB is the first year we've had teacher leadership boot camp. And we've had, I think the pandemic had made a higher turnover HB, actually in education.
Yep.
And relatively speaking, HB's turnover was lower than a Hawken, even Laurel or other schools, but higher than us normally, because we really do seem to have teachers and staff members who stay for a long time. So we had an opportunity to really promote really talented people internally. But again, we hadn't done a lot of the homework of kind of having a leadership boot camp model so that they're ready to go. Not they're incredibly good, but that if you're not necessarily in a different place, sometimes that leadership moment, just you don't grow as you would in a different environment. So anyway, we now have this leadership boot camp and it's going really well. We hired an executive coach from outside. We've done internal kind of workshops. We have an external person coming in and the team is really liking it. So I think that probably the Lululemon-esque type leadership model, business model certainly is working in independent schools as well. And so after you left Lululemon, then you became mom, entrepreneur, kind of out of a culture of, Lululemon is big, right? Your entrepreneur world is probably a little smaller than that.
Yeah. And, I was always an entrepreneur. I think I've always been an entrepreneur. I think it's in my blood and in my DNA. And why I was able to stay at Lululemon for so long is that I was able to be an entrepreneur in that business as well. So I lived all over the world with the company. I was always on the forefront of our growth. I was always in a position where I was able to really create the role and pioneer what was next, because I was generally in roles that had never existed before. And that's the benefit of working for a really high growth company, where there's a flexibility. And if you're willing to be a yes, there's lots of ways to learn and to grow and develop as an entrepreneur. And what's so cool about it all is that I met Eric. So I started with Lululemon in New York and I moved to London for a hot minute. And then I lived in Asia for almost 5 years. And then I went back to company headquarters in Vancouver, Canada. and Eric and I met on Hinge, which is a dating app. And it's like, we always joke that he must have had his radius like 200 miles, because like he was in Seattle and I was in Vancouver, and I think I had my radius like 1 mile. So like, why did our circles overlap? But destiny, right? And so we met and we were dating, and it got quite serious quite quickly. And you know, we bought a house, and then I got pregnant. And I got pregnant as a Canadian citizen or employee. So I had this great benefit of a year maternity leave, which I know that like there are probably lots of moms on this call, but we could do a much better job in our country of maternity leave and parental leave. And I didn't know how lucky I was until I was in it. And after I had Edie, and it was the pandemic, you know, it was the lockdown. And so I was able to really cocoon and nest with her. And I breastfed for like ever and ever and ever. And during that time, you know, like becoming a mom, I became really clear that I wanted to be of service in the world in a way that Lululemon enabled me to be. But I think I'd learned what I needed to learn there. And one of my great mentors at Lululemon, you know, after I told her I was leaving, she was like, "Oh, you graduated," you know, and I loved that. I love this notion of going to a place and learning what you need to learn, and then graduating and going on to something else. And so when I was in consideration of what was next, and I was postpartum and 43, and I was talking to a friend of mine who had just done a dissertation and a master's thesis on menopause. She was also 43, and she was doing her master's on coaching psychology, and she really through all this research and training clients and women of menopausal age, sort of follow this red thread and realize that there was no conversation, or what we call a lack of whisper culture around menopause. It was one of these last taboos that we don't talk about. And in talking to Jenny and in experiencing my own symptoms of like just aging and having hormones and hormones like changing, you know, through pregnancy, postpartum, and then maybe what could be perimenopause, I didn't know. We decided that we didn't want to just like let that, like be resigned to that, be resigned to not knowing about our bodies, be resigned to being a culture of women or a generation that wasn't going to do something about it. And then lo and behold, all sorts of media and energy and businesses started popping up around menopause, when we knew there was something there. And so we decided to create Hysterical. And the mission of Hysterical is to really create community and to create a whisper culture around menopause, but really like women and aging. And our mission is that we believe women with maturity, agency, and confidence are needed to change the world. And that's, I think, a very HB sentiment. I think that's probably a seed that was planted probably when I was sitting around, you know, Miss Syed's seminar table in English class. You know, it's this notion that if we have a big idea and a great purpose, and if we can change the world, we must. And that's really endemic to how we built Hysterical and what we're creating.
Yeah, it's basically wisdom, beauty, friendship, duty, right? Isn't that the song? Right? I mean, it's the same.
Good one,
right?
Clark. Totally. Yes.
I mean, you know, whisper, maturity, agency, and confidence. It's synonyms for.
It's true. Right? Yeah, it is absolutely true. Yeah, and beauty as this like internal notion, right? Like how we're creating a beautiful, kind world with compassion for each other and our experiences. And just even like, you know, starting Hysterical, we have like one of the big pieces of the business are these talk shows where we're talking to experts. And again, like, you know, it all comes full circle. I always want to be a talk show host. Now I found out a way to do it. And we're talking to these experts, about menopause and it's like so fascinating. I mean, my like light bulbs go off like every minute when I'm talking to these various people. And it's just like, it's like a complete shame that we don't know more about this, you know, for 51% of the population, and as we're aging and all these things that are happening in our body. And the shame is that like, we don't know it systemically. Like we've been living in this like super male dominated medical system. And we're sort of in the impact of that. Not until 2016 was it mandated that medical studies are performed on women. 2016, you know, that's 6 years ago. It's insane. And so I think, one of our declarations is that we're going to be the generation that changes menopause forever. And I think that's true, right? We're going to be the last ones that experience this lack of knowledge and agency with the knowledge.
Yeah. It's true. And I think that there is I like the idea of whisper culture around, that, anything having to do, I remember when my girls, I have two girls, one's 24, one's 25, when they got their period, I decided that we were going to wear amazing dresses and go out to dinner. Like, this is a moment to celebrate. And then all my friends started to do the same thing. It was really fun. Of course, people at the restaurant in Vermont, rural Vermont, like some winter, like Wednesday nights, these girls show up in prom dresses. Like, what's going on? Oh, we just got our periods. But I think that's true that the frontier of talking about this, especially with girlfriends or in a network, that's so important. They used to do this historically. They would talk about spinning groups, right, in the 1700s, and how that culture of everybody sitting down knitting or spinning or all of those things, and then we kind of got pulled away from that, and which caused such vacuums of knowledge in female culture. Add a pandemic and a bunch of other crazy things happening, and you've lost a chapter on how women used to transfer knowledge, especially about menopause, to each other.
Mm-hmm.
What projects are you working on right now with Hysterical? Is there a specific exciting one project that's happening now?
We're building out our content calendar for 2023. So there'll be 2 talk shows a month, and you'll be able to see who's coming on board and speaking. And then we're also, we're a baby company. We just started in October in earnest. And so really over the past 6-8 weeks, we really learned what's working in our user experience and what's not working. And so we're doing a little shifting. So the talk shows will be available via podcast too. So you'll be able to listen post, but what we love about the talk show format like this, right? Like 40 minutes with Fran, is that there's an audience, you're able to respond to the audience and engage with live questions. And we think creating that platform for women to, and all people, right? It's not just women, to learn more and get their questions answered is really impactful. And then we also want to meet our audience where they are, and everybody's really busy. And so if you are driving in the car or you're on a walk and you'd rather listen, we can do that too. And then we're also exploring partnerships with some other startups in this space. There is I think a great camaraderie among businesses that are in this menopause space, because really we aren't competing against each other. We're competing against the culture, or a lack of information and awareness in the culture around menopause. And so partnering with various businesses in this space and being the community entity to what they're creating is also the next big thing for us, which we're really excited about.
That's great. Well, inspired by that, let's open it up to others if anybody has any questions, because this is the talk show host moment we are creating for you. And I should say, Lululemon, you were there for 12 years. HB, you were there for 12 years. That's the lifer kind of category, the graduation kind of moment, right? So questions from anyone? I don't want to dominate 40 minutes with Fran.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that easy?
Is it?
And thank you so much, Amanda. I actually also met my husband on Hinge, so.
Oh yeah.
Bonding. As Fran mentioned, thank you, Fran. I have a company called Finch, which decodes products' environmental footprints to help consumers make better decisions. So really cutting through the greenwashing. And we have a pretty good audience. We have, 15,000 subscribers to our newsletter, but we don't have a community, right? It's not, your experience isn't enhanced in any way by Fran or anybody else being on the platform. And so I'm curious if you have any tips on how we can start really building that community where our people are working with each other as opposed to just listening to what we have to say.
Yeah, it's a great point. And what's cool about what you've built is that there's a shared sense of values already in the equation. And I think that's really what is essential to community. It's a group of people that share values and then have action or engagement from there. I wonder if you've thought about giving them a place or a platform to talk to each other. Or, because there's always that like one-way feedback loop. And I think what's sort of interesting about this Web3 conversation, I don't know how familiar you are. I went down this Web3 rabbit hole earlier this year, but like we're living in the Web2 paradigm, right? So all of the social media companies have become really dominant, the Facebook, Instagram, TikToks of the world, but it creates this one-way conversation. And Web3, the hypothesis is there is that we can actually create more decentralized communities. So certainly what you're craving, Lizzie, is what's being craved sort of in the greater context of how we're gathering online. And I think we'll have more platforms that help support us in that. But in the meantime, I would consider like going super old school, events or meetups or engagement opportunities for you and your team to meet people who are your super fans of those 15,000 people, and learn from them what they want and how they want to engage, because listening is so essential to the community equation. And we believe at Hysterical that our community will tell us what the community will become. And so part of the essential nature of what we're building is listening and having like a comfort level with not knowing what it's going to be in 3 years.
Thank you so much. That's super helpful.
And you know where to find me if ever. I always love talking about community. I could, we could deep dive anytime.
Amanda Clark put in the chat, you mentioned Miss Syed as being an inspiration. Who else inspired you?
At HB specifically, or in the world? I mean,
either way.
Yeah. I mean, Fran, you talked about tenure. I think I would say there was like 1% turnover, like the 12 year or the 8 years we were in middle school and high school. It felt like, I mean, I think I can remember significantly like teachers leaving and being devastated in a positive way because we like them so much. But Miss Syed, Dr. Syed was a huge inspiration. I loved her sense of self and like how she knew exactly who she was, and she modeled that for us in a really compelling way. Mm-hmm. Dr. Thornton was the exact same for me, somebody who was completely confident in her like superpowers and like all of the uniqueness of her personality. Mrs. Southard and Mr. Southard too, in their marriage, it was fun to watch and sort of see them as a couple through our years at HB. But Mrs. Southard, I was the first person, maybe not the first person, but she, I remember auditioning for the 7th and 8th grade musical and like not thinking, I've like limited like singing capabilities, but I think she like knew that I liked being on the stage. And so she, put me in a great role. And I just remember feeling so buoyed by that, that acknowledgement. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, like, sports and I think, I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter. She's going to be 13 this weekend. And so I like, am drinking from the fire hose of parenting with a 2-year-old and an adolescent who, just, is going through puberty, et cetera. And I have so many great memories of our high school athletics and what that created for us from a team spirit, camaraderie, athleticism perspective. And I would say I'm sort of like a late blooming athlete. Like I've come into my athleticism later. I think I was the goalie because I like was sporty, but couldn't run enough to be like actually on the field. Like I was no cardio fitness. I remember doing the mile and like my face was like the color of the shirt for probably 3 hours afterward. But the sports teams like Laurette Payette and Amy Longley, holy moly, those two are institutions and taught us so much on the field and off.
Yeah, that's great. We have so many extraordinary educators now, but I would say they're younger you know, that we still have. I think Sherry Hominy is one of the longest tenured, with Jamie Morris retiring last year. Sherry Hominy is now the longest tenured teacher. And I think Terry Churchill, the plant and property director, 40 years, I think, at HB. So, but we still have quite a few people in their 20-year zone, but very few in their 30, 40-year zone. And for many years, we had many people in their 30 and 40-year zone.
Well, turnover is good, right? Like fresh blood and
graduations, right?
Yeah, graduating, do new things.
Yeah.
I think also like retirement as like a construct is taking on a new life of its own, because we're aging differently than we have before. And so I think we'll see people have like careers after their careers and never really retire. And I think that's certainly that'll be something certainly interesting to track as you bring educators through, and then, you know, teach them leadership boot camp and create access for them and what's next.
You know, there are so many cycles of, you know, of career life, and of you were reflecting on parenthood too, drinking from the fire hose with a 2-year-old and a 13-year-old. Let me just tell you, I have my 20-year-olds. They do come back to love you. Like, it's in their 20s that the teenagers come back to loving you. And that's exactly when your children turn 20 that you start your menopausal kind of stuff. So I don't know how, you know, the universe kind of decides which challenges to put in front of you, but it seems that my experience is that cycle. But
well, I mean, it's interesting. So, I mean, you look very young and you have a 20-year-old, and I am 40.
Keep talking.
Yeah, no, I mean, right. Like, you got your cool glasses on, you know, like, and so you had children earlier. I had children later. You know, I got pregnant with you when I was 41, which is its own whole thing. And I think like that's also like something that we're learning. I mean, we are born with not to like go deep in the menopause thing or like women's ovaries, but we are limited with choice as women, you know, with our reproductive systems, because we can only have kids for so long right now. And I don't think I would have been able to like have the career I had and like lived all over the world if I may have, if I had the right partner. And but if I'd made those different decisions along the way, I don't know that I would have. And I feel very, very, very lucky to have gotten pregnant with Edie so easily, and to be able to have this experience of being a mom so late. And it doesn't feel late, right? Like, that's the thing, like 44 to me not feel old, like, you know. And so there's this experience that I'm having that like where my body wants me to age, you know, and like I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't fall back to sleep, and I'm like, what's that about? And then like how I feel psychologically and like aging, and truly it feels like in many ways I'm just getting going.
Yeah.
Does anybody else wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall back asleep?
Yes. Yep.
Progesterone has been a game changer for me. I'll just like put it out there.
Yeah. Dave, my partner husband, is a acupuncturist and whole health kind of guy. So he kind of does the alternative. I think you need more, you know, beans, spinach, and a sweet potato. And I will put, you know, on radius 4, and I think it'll go to sleep. So the kind of acupuncture kind of nutritionist. It's so not awesome. Working perfectly, but it does improve every now and then. So
I love it. We're having, I'll just like give a plug. We're having this woman on the talk show on December 12th. So you can find more information about it like in the next couple of days on our website. But her name's Stacey Sims, and she's this exercise physiologist that has really studied women and women of our age, you know, 40 plus, and how we need to eat and exercise like in perimenopause and postmenopause. And she said, and we did our pre-talk yesterday, and she said the most fascinating thing, like we do a lot of damage to our endocrine system, not eating enough carbohydrates, and that we need to be really eating more carbohydrates as we age. And because sometimes, you know, if we're like interested in losing weight or exercising too much in damaging the endocrine system, it can really mess up our gut. And so she was saying how we need to get that healthy bacteria back. And one of the ways is to eat more apples, because there's so much good healthy bacteria in apple peels. So I was like just kind of excited about that, you know, and she'll demystify a lot of things for us. So in a couple of weeks, but that was something interesting to me. Like free reign to eat more carbohydrates, great. And then also, you know, what can I have to increase my gut bacteria was something that I was interested in.
Amanda, I don't know if you recall, but on our 7th grade field trip to Cape Cod, I can't remember which teacher it was, but she taught us you can eat an entire apple, seeds and all.
Oh,
And
yeah.
eat them as a whole, like a whole apple.
I
Bringing
remember
it all back to HB. You can share that on your next talk show. We learned that early.
Oh my God, there's so many like food memories I have from HB field trips. We could spend the next 6 minutes talking about that, but I'll just share one. Remember when we went to there, we like had we went to an Amish farm and every single kid walked back on the bus with a full loaf of bread.
Yes.
And like everybody was like, I bought this bread. And it was this like such like yummy, dense, sort of fluffy bread that every kid also ate their full loaf of bread as we were driving. That and like apple scrapple bread or something like that. Yeah. So baked.
It's great. Well, this has been terrific. I mean, I am so grateful for you spending time with us and so excited to join your hysterical group. Certainly a conversation I need now. And, you know, is women championing women being there for each other and big and small ways, especially as we journey through these cycles of being a woman. How exciting that that's here and available for us. And it feels very HB. So thank you. And thank you, Missy, for pulling this together. I'm so great everybody could be here together too. So enjoy, look what's coming in your mail. And we'll see you in about a month for the next 40 minutes with Fran. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, I will be sending this recording out afterwards. So you can tell your friends to watch it if they missed it. And then another little plug, EDAO is on December 16th. All alums are welcome to join. We're having a little cookies and treats for anybody who is local, and then you can join in the procession afterwards. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun. Nice to see you.
Thanks, everyone.